Michael Jackson didn't stop that night because a crowd recognized him. He stopped because one man didn't. The man sat on the curb with a paper cup and a military cap pulled low, staring at the pavement like he'd been there for years. Michael's security tried to guide him past, but Michael turned back anyway. What happened next started with a homeless veteran, and Michael's quiet decision left the whole street speechless. It was 1996 in San Francisco, the kind of evening where the fog rolls in early and turns streetlights into glowing halos. Michael had just left a low-key charity dinner. Nothing flashy, no performance. Just a room of donors, polite speeches, and the exhausting kind of smiling that never makes headlines. Outside the venue, the city was alive in its own way. Cable cars clanking in the distance, taxis sliding past, the smell of hot pretzels and ocean air mixing in the cold. Michael stepped out through a side exit, hood up, baseball cap low, hoping to get to the car without turning the sidewalk into a scene. But halfway to the curb, he noticed something that didn't fit the night. A man, late 50s, maybe early 60s, sat near the edge of a building's warm air vent. He wore an old U.S. Army cap, faded and bent out of shape. A rough blanket was folded under him like he'd learned how to make discomfort look organized. In front of him was a small sign, handwritten in black marker on cardboard. Veteran. Anything helps. God bless. Next to the sign lay a pair of worn combat boots that weren't being worn anymore, placed there like a reminder of a time when he still belonged somewhere. Most people walked by without seeing him, or worse, they saw him and trained themselves not to. Michael slowed. His head of security, Dale, noticed immediately and stepped closer. "Michael," Dale said under his breath, "let's keep moving." Michael didn't answer. His eyes stayed on the veteran. The veteran looked up once, briefly, not with excitement, not with recognition, just with the flat, guarded look of someone who's been disappointed too many times to expect anything from strangers. Michael took a step toward him. Dale shifted, tense. "Sir." Michael lifted one hand, calm. "1 minute." That was all he said, and it was enough. Michael approached slowly so he wouldn't startle him. "Hello," Michael said softly. The veteran blinked, then nodded once as if greeting people was a habit he didn't want to lose. "Evening," he replied. Michael crouched, not all the way down on the sidewalk, but low enough to be near eye level. It wasn't a performance. It was instinct. "What's your name?" Michael asked. The man hesitated like names were dangerous. "Frank," he said. "Frank Wilson." Michael nodded. "Frank," he repeated gently. "Are you okay?" Frank gave a short laugh that had no humor in it. "Depends what day you ask me," he said. Then he glanced at Michael's shoes, clean and expensive even in the dark. "You don't gotta do this." "I want to," Michael said. Frank studied him again, squinting under the cap brim. "Anyone ever tell you?" Frank said slowly. "You look like—" Michael smiled faintly, but he didn't confirm it. He didn't deny it either. He just stayed present. Frank's eyes dropped to the ground. "My hands," Frank muttered, holding them out for half a second. They shook slightly. "Don't work like they used to." Michael's throat tightened. "Cold?" he asked. Frank shook his head once. "Not just cold." Michael nodded like he understood the difference. A car horn blared nearby. People passed. One couple slowed, recognized Michael for a second, then froze, unsure if they should react. Dale stepped slightly into their line of sight, a quiet barrier. They moved on. Michael looked at Frank's sign again. "You served," Michael said. Frank's jaw set. "Yeah." "Where?" Michael asked. Frank hesitated, then spoke like the words cost him something. "Vietnam," he said. 69. Michael went quiet for a beat. "Thank you," Michael said. Frank flinched slightly, like that phrase had been thrown at him too many times without meaning. "People say that," Frank said. "Then they cross the street." Michael didn't argue. He just nodded. "I'm sorry," Michael said quietly, "that you're here." Frank stared at him, surprised by the directness. "You don't know me," Frank said. Michael's voice stayed calm. "I know what it looks like when someone's tired of being invisible." Frank's lips parted slightly, then closed. He looked away fast, like he didn't want a stranger to see what was rising behind his eyes. Michael reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small pair of gloves, simple black gloves, not flashy. He held them out. "For your hands," he said. Frank stared at them like they were a trap. "I can't take," Frank began. Michael cut him off gently. "You can," he said. "Please." Frank took them slowly and slid them on. His shoulders loosened by an inch, like warmth was permission. Michael looked at Frank's shoes on the ground. "Do you have somewhere to sleep tonight?" Michael asked. Frank's laugh came again. "This city? You sleep where you can." Michael's eyes flicked toward Dale, then back. "Would you let me help you?" Michael asked. Frank's face hardened instantly. "Here it comes," Frank said. "The lecture. The go to a shelter." Michael shook his head. "No lecture," he said. "Just help." Frank stared at him, still suspicious. "Why?" Michael's answer came quiet and simple. "Because if it was me," he said, "I'd hope someone would stop." Frank's eyes changed at that, not softened, just less armored. Behind them, the sidewalk traffic had slowed. People were looking, not screaming, not pointing, just watching like they couldn't believe what they were seeing. The most famous man in the world crouched beside someone the world had decided not to see. Michael lowered his voice. "Frank," he said, "do you have anyone?" Frank swallowed. "Had a daughter," he said. "Long time ago." Michael didn't push, but he asked gently, "What happened?" Frank's jaw trembled once. "I happened," he said. "Came home wrong." Michael nodded slowly. Frank's voice got rougher. "She wrote me when she was little. I didn't write back. Didn't know how. Thought I'd poison her life." Michael's eyes lowered. He took that in. "That doesn't mean it's over," Michael said. Frank shook his head. "You don't know my kind of over." Michael looked up. "Maybe I don't," he said. "But I know this. You're still here." Frank stared at him, and for the first time his suspicion looked tired. Michael stood slowly and looked to Dale. "Can you give us 2 minutes?" Michael asked quietly. Dale hesitated. "Michael." "2 minutes," Michael repeated. Dale stepped back but stayed close enough to protect, far enough to not crowd. Michael turned back to Frank. "Do you trust me enough for one phone call?" Michael asked. Frank scoffed. "What phone call?" Michael pulled a small card from his pocket and a pen. He wrote down a number. "This is a Veterans Outreach Coordinator I know," Michael said. "They can get you a room tonight. Not a shelter floor. A room." Frank stared at the card like it was written in another language. "You're lying," he said automatically, because hope hurts more than disappointment. Michael shook his head. "I'm not," he said, "but you don't have to believe me yet." Frank's hands trembled as he held the card. Michael continued, calm and practical. "I'll pay for the room tonight," Michael said, "and tomorrow they'll help with paperwork, benefits, clinic, whatever you need. You won't do it alone." Frank's mouth opened, but no words came. Michael reached into his other pocket and pulled out a folded envelope, plain. He placed it beside Frank's cup. "That's for food," Michael said, "and a clean set of clothes. You don't have to explain it to anyone. Just use it." Frank stared at the envelope like it was dangerous. Then his face tightened. "People don't do this," he whispered. "Not like this." Michael's voice stayed steady. "Maybe they should," he said. Frank's eyes glistened. "If you're really," he began, nodding toward Michael's face, unable to say the name. Michael didn't confirm it. He didn't need to. Instead, Michael did something that made Frank's breath catch. He reached out and gave Frank a small, respectful salute. Not exaggerated, not movie-like, just correct. Frank froze, then returned it. Slow, shaky, but real. Like his body remembered honor even if life had forgotten it. The street behind them went quiet for a moment. Even strangers understood what that gesture meant. Frank's voice broke. "I don't deserve that," he whispered. Michael shook his head gently. "You served," he said. "You deserve to be seen." Frank looked down at the gloves on his hands, then at the card, then at the envelope. His shoulders started to shake. Not dramatic, not loud. Just a man trying not to fall apart in public. Michael waited. He didn't rush him. When Frank finally spoke, his voice was barely there. "What are the 4 words?" Frank asked suddenly, confused. Michael tilted his head. "4 words?" Frank swallowed. "People say things," he said. "They say lines. You got a line, don't you?" Michael's eyes softened. He thought for a second, then said quietly, simple and direct, "You're not done yet." Frank stared at him like that sentence hit somewhere deep. Michael nodded once, as if sealing it. Then he stood, adjusted his hat, and stepped back. Dale moved in quickly, ready to leave before attention turned into chaos. But before Michael turned away, Frank grabbed his sleeve lightly, just the fingertips. Michael looked down. Frank couldn't meet his eyes. "Thank you," Frank whispered, "for stopping." Michael held his gaze anyway. "Thank you for staying," Michael replied. Michael walked to the car. The sidewalk traffic restarted like the city was remembering how to move again. People whispered. A woman wiped her eyes. A man shook his head like he'd just witnessed something he couldn't explain. Frank sat there for a long moment, staring at the card in his hand as if it might vanish. Then, slowly, he stood up. Not like a man who'd been saved, like a man who'd been handed his next step. And the craziest part was this. Michael never turned it into a story. No press release, no cameras, no "look what I did." He just left. And because of that, the street knew it wasn't a stunt, it was real. If this story stayed with you, please like and subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that dignity can be restored in a single moment. Have you ever seen someone stop and truly see a stranger? Tell us in the comments and hit the notification bell for more untold, documentary-style stories from the world of music.